Bibbity bobbity, give me that jobbity. Abracadabra, increase my salary. Hello and welcome back to Idea Shack, where we take an analytical lens to mysticism, spirituality, the esoteric, and phenomena not previously understood. My name is Kiara, the Mad Witch, and I am so excited to be talking with you today about manifesting your dream job or jobs, because I have done this not once, not twice, but 4 friggin' times. And first I'm going to tell you about the 2 major ones, and then I'd like to tell you why I believe I was successful in manifesting these opportunities, because I think it's a little different than what we typically hear on the echo chamber that is the internet. And so I hope that by sharing a little bit of my career story with y'all, that someone out there somewhere might benefit from it. Story number 1. It was the fall of 2021, and I was surfing around on Gaia, which is like Netflix for new age hippies, and I stumbled on a documentary featuring the Institute of Noetic Sciences, or IONS. And this video featured Dr. Dean Radin, who is a leading light in the field of psi research. And I was watching this man talk about all of their projects and what it is that they were researching, and I was like, holy dude, I did my life wrong. I should have majored in transcendental psychology so I could be in a room with those people who are studying everything I care about, right? That bridge between spirituality and science. And so I bought a bunch of his books, started incorporating some of the ideas onto the channel here, but for the most part, I just forgot about it. Until 4 months later, I logged into a freelance writing email that I no longer use. It had been years since I had logged into this email, and I don't even know why I did it. It was just kind of on a whim. I don't remember what I was looking for, but I remember logging in and there were 4,000 unread emails, most of them job email roundups or job listings from like Indeed, Monster, that kind of thing. And if you've ever gotten one of those emails, you know that the subject line is pretty like nondescript, and then you click into the email and it's got like a bunch of different listings, right? So I scroll halfway down the page, click on a random one, scroll halfway down that, and stop dead on an opening for a part-time freelance writer with the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I had just worked my way to a 30-hour work week with my full-time job. This was 10 hours a week, and it was literally perfect. And it basically fell into my lap. So a few weeks later, I was sitting on a conference call with Dean Radin and company. And just so you know, I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. Which part of this do I want to cover? This part. Just so you know, I'm not full of okay? There is that. That is my name. I might blur out some of that because some of y'all are freaking creepy. Story number 2. I had just failed at an e-commerce business and it sucked. Okay, it sucked because I put 2 years of my life into this. I was really proud of it. And I just realized that I had reached the end of my rope. I had taken the project as far as I could with the knowledge that I had at the time. And it was something that I just realized with the time and energy and resources that I had, it wasn't enough to get this to work at that point in my life. And so I stayed in bed for 3 days, grieving, feeling like a failure. And then at the end of that, I prayed to the universe and was like, please redirect me. Please send me an opportunity to learn how to build and scale businesses. A month freaking later, a serial entrepreneur stumbles on this YouTube channel when we had like maybe 150, 200 of us. And this channel obviously has nothing to do with business, but this person asked me to come be his idea sorceress and head storyteller at a venture studio that is trying to build 100 companies in 5 years. Like, what are the chances, right? What are the chances? That is the best possible way for me to learn what I asked to learn. So, am I just a lucky? Is it the Jupiter in Sag? Is it because I'm 75% Irish? No, none of that. Look, there's a method to the madness, and I really do believe that it's because I have a much different, I can't take myself seriously. I think my success is in part due to the fact that I have a different interpretation of the law of attraction than what we often see and hear perpetuated on the internet. And I've talked about that in depth in other videos, so I'm not going to go into it here. I'll touch on it where appropriate, but really what I would like to do today is share some ideas about how anyone can manifest work they love by taking my stories and boiling them down into 5 pragmatic ideas. Idea number 1. Never chase the money and the money will come. This is energetic as well as pragmatic advice, and we'll tackle it from both angles. So on the pragmatic 3D side of things, I recently had a friend come to me who I absolutely adore, and this friend has the unusual challenge of not being passionate about anything. She hasn't found that thing that lights her soul up. And so as she's trying to get her career off the ground, what she's doing is juggling a bunch of part-time temporary jobs. At the same time, she has received a job offer for something full-time that's going to pay her a little more, and it's also going to give her the stability factor. And so she asked for my input. And I was like, friend, if you don't love this, why go all in on it? Like, your bills are covered, you're provided for, you're safe. And most people, the mistake that most people make is that they follow the money. Most people follow the money, which is why they end up in a line of work that they feel lukewarm about, that they don't like at all. And so an alternative approach, if I might suggest something, is to continue exploring lots of different things with the temporary stuff and the part-time stuff until you find that thing, your thing that strikes a chord, right? That lights you up, that fills your cup. And once you have found that, then you're never going to regret having gone in that direction. And I promise you, when you find your thing, the money will come. And my friend was like, you know what, that's great advice. And I was like, it works for the 3D. But we can also bring in the magical and the mystical. And it goes back to that energetic concept of what we chase, we repel. And so, for example, if we chase money, we repel it. And so it is an energetic concept. If you're familiar with the law of attraction, you've heard all about that. But we can also see this play out very literally. And let's use an example to illustrate. I think dating is a very amusing example of this. So I'm going to make a couple of sweeping generalizations. Okay, sweeping. If a woman is desperate for something, it's typically commitment. If a man is desperate for something, it's typically sex. And there's nothing wrong with wanting either of those things, right? But it's when we become almost desperate for it to the point where, like, we have this void in us and we're chasing that thing. When we feel like we need that thing, that's when we start to repel it. And so, for example, I used to have a friend who wanted a boyfriend more than anything in the world, more than anything. And when she decided she was attracted to a man, she would make him the epicenter of her universe. She just revolved around him. And she would chase him in black lingerie and an armful of home-baked cookies, and was mystified when all of her dates ran away from her. On the flip side, you might be a woman who has had men come at you way too hard for sex. And it is the biggest turnoff in the world, right? To have someone panting over you like a dog with a new hump toy. Like, no, thank you. And in either case, whether you are the too nice girl or the too aggressive dude, the problem is the same. What we chase, we repel. And the image I get in my head is like grabby, sticky toddler hands, right? Like, yeah, give it to me, I want it. There's only one natural response when someone comes at you like this, which is, ew, get the f away from me. Smuckers. And yeah, like a little bit of pursuit, especially when you are the masculine in a connection, a little bit of cat and mouse, that can be fun, right? That's all well and good, but it's very different than chasing something because we are trying to fill a void. And this is fundamentally energetic, that what we chase, we repel. It's the same with money. It's the same with work. I really do believe that the reason I manifested both of those opportunities, that they dropped out of the sky and into my lap, the reason I have manifested fun and well-paying work is because I have never, ever made it about the money. It has always been about doing work that I could feel good about, doing work that I enjoyed. Joseph Campbell has that quote, follow your bliss, is how most people know it. Most people don't know that toward the end of his life, he changed it to follow your blisters. So that those things that might look like work to other people, but they feel like play to us. And if you follow that and not the money, you can end up in some pretty special places. And this brings us to point number 2. Set it and forget it. When people talk about the law of attraction, they often talk about the field as being like an incubator, right? So the idea is that you ask and you receive, but during the time, that interim between asking and receiving, there's a period of waiting. And it's in that time that your manifestation is being held in this space, in this incubator, and it's all percolating, it's coming together in the background. Popular opinion would tell us that in the interim, you should continually remind yourself of that thing that you want. So, you have a dream home, you create a vision board of it, and you stare at it every day. You have a list of qualities that you want in a friendship and you read it every day. I beg to differ. Okay, I beg to differ because I think that if you stare at this house that you want every day, all you're doing is reminding yourself of the fact that you don't have it, and you're starting to live in anticipation of the day that you will. Also, if you have taken the time to figure out what it is that you truly want, and you have documented it in some way through visuals, through writing, that's is going to stay in your subconscious forever. Okay, forever. So I take a slightly different approach, and it's a very profound approach, which is why I call it the crock pot of surrender. Okay, I love cooking in crock pots because you just dump a bunch of ingredients into a pot, you leave it overnight, and you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, food, I forgot I did that. And it's the same concept here. I've made dream boards and I've scripted, and when I'm done, I bury that in my closet, okay, or a sock drawer, or I put it somewhere where it's not front and center all the time. And the idea is that we surrender the outcome, right? We leave it in God's hands, so to speak, and 11 out of 10 times it works, okay? It's the principle of Wu Wei, doing by not doing. I think that because I was not looking for an opening with Ions and I wasn't consciously looking for someone to teach me business, that these opportunities just kind of found me. One word of caution though, in the interim between the asking and receiving, do not say yes to things you don't want. And that takes us to point number 3. Number 3, say no to what you know is not for you. Because sometimes when we're manifesting, the universe will send us something that looks suspiciously like what we asked for, except it's not it. And I don't know if there's an official term for this. It's a well-known concept in law of attraction, but I feel like we need a term. If you have an idea, let me know in the comments, because some people will talk about this in terms of a test or a temptation. I think a lot of people feel like they're being teased, right? Like the universe is like, oh, you want it, you can't have it. I don't actually think that's what's happening. What I think is happening is that every time there's one of these little hiccups, we are being given an opportunity to be more clear in what it is we want. It's an opportunity to refine what it is that we think we want. For example, say you think you know what you want in a partner, and you synchronistically start attracting all of these people who seem to check all of the boxes, except every time it's not quite the right fit. I remember manifesting one person who checked literally all of the boxes except one. He wasn't playful, and it wasn't on my list, but it never occurred to me to put it there. And having encountered someone who had everything except wasn't playful, I was like, holy, that's something I literally can't live without. Like, now that I think about it, it's probably the second or third thing on my list. Next person comes along, eerily similar. Okay, eerily, down to the hobbies, but this time he's goofy. And I was like, yes, except he wanted to own me. And like, look, a little bit of possessiveness can be sexy. Like, especially as a woman, it makes you feel like protected and desirable. But at the same time, I was like, buddy, you do not own me. I am my own person and I am a free spirit. So let's tie this back to the idea of career. I have worked remote and flex time for my entire career, okay? So before COVID, and it was just non-negotiable for me. Like I said, a free spirit, okay? And I was like, ain't no way I'm gonna be at someone's beck and call like, you would see in a traditional corporate structure. And so my sister at some point asked me, she was like, how can I get work that is remote and flex time? And I was like, don't accept work that isn't remote and flex time. And that was like literally my answer. Like, it's that simple, because it's an energetic thing, right? In the law of attraction, they talk about it as the universe abhors a vacuum. And the idea is that if we clear a space, if we empty a space, the universe is going to try to fill it. But it may try to fill it with some things we don't want before something we do want comes in. And my sister is a very talented, brilliant lady. She could totally find remote and flex time work. All she needs to do is say hell no to the cubicle and the time card where they want her to stamp in at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. That. Now look, I'm realistic, and I acknowledge that sometimes we do have to take work that we don't particularly enjoy. I held a really boring role for 2 years. This was before Ions, it was before the studio. And I was bored out of my mind. It was foundational. I knew it was foundational at the time. I didn't realize how foundational, because that role literally set me up to be a perfect fit for all the fun roles that I would have later. But at the time, I didn't know that. I just felt that like, this is something that I know I need to do, even if I'm bored and don't understand why I'm here at the moment. But the trick is, if you find yourself in a situation where you're doing work that you don't particularly enjoy, The trick is not to settle. Okay, do not ever let yourself get comfortable in a place you don't really want to be. I repeat, please, please do not ever let yourself get comfortable in a place you don't really want to be, because so many people do that. It sounds obvious, right? It sounds like an obvious thing, but so many people do it anyway. They fall into that trap, and 10 years down the road, they're wondering what happened to their life. So even when I was at this role that I didn't particularly enjoy, I was still finding ways to fill my own cup. I had started this YouTube channel. I was trying to launch an e-commerce business. And that brings us to point number 4. Number 4, put energy in the right directions. I failed a lot, okay? Like a lot, to the point where I've often wondered if I've taken too many wrong turns in my life, if I'm not in the right place, if I'm behind in life. And I know those fears aren't unique to me. I think that my generation in particular, us millennials, but other people too. I honestly think this is a universal thing. People struggle with these fears. And once I've shaken these fears off, sometimes that obnoxious voice comes out. And when you hear that, look, what I do is I just tell it off. And when I've kind of shaken that off, I always think of it as, those failures are huge learning opportunities. And that's the really like pragmatic 3D way of thinking about that, right? No such thing as failure, just growth. Just learning experiences. However, I also feel like there is an energetic component to this, where the energy, the time, and the resources that I put into a project, even if it fails, is part of what helps manifest the big things. It just doesn't always pay off in the way that you think it will. So for example, I can give a couple examples for this. This channel, I have put hundreds, if not thousands of hours between the reading and the content creation. I put a lot of time into this channel. And for the record, like the only reason I've ever done this is because I love it. And having idea sex with y'all is actually the highlight of my week, okay? You people who don't leave creepy or mean comments, you people are literally the highlight of my week, okay? So that's why I do this. But you would think that if I was putting a ton of energy into this, the way that the universe would be like, okay, here's your payoff, if you want to think of it in those terms, it would be like to have a large channel. Now, the way that this actually has paid off vocationally is that a serial entrepreneur stumbled on my YouTube channel and made me his idea source for us, kind of out of left field. But it never would have happened. It never would have happened unless he would have found my content. He just stumbled on here and was like, wow, you're just the right amount of crazy. Come work at your dream job. Like, what are the chances of that? It's not chance. And keep in mind that him finding me came on the heels of that big e-commerce flop. Like I said, I put 2 years of my life into that. And everything from designing the product to developing the product, I hired the photographer, the professional models, I fielded supply chain issues all throughout the pandemic. I ran ads, I wrote content. And I had to do all of that. I had to go from A to Z. I had to take this project all the way and have it fail before I realized there were all these gaps in my knowledge. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't know how much I don't know. And I would never have asked for help. I wouldn't have been like, universe, please meet me halfway because I don't know what the I'm doing. It never would have happened. And so I think the reason I find myself under the wings of world-class entrepreneurs is because I took that risk and I fell flat on my face. Whee! And so my point is this, the universe appreciates effort, okay? Co-creation is an exchange, and what we put out in some form will always come back to us. Sometimes it's not in the way we expect, but it's better than what we could have imagined. Don't be afraid to work hard at things, even if they fail, okay? All that matters, all that counts in the eyes of that thing, okay, in the eyes of the field, is that you are putting out energy in the right directions. If you make something, I think when people make their North Star something and they hold the course for their entire life, people end up where they are trying to go. The course just often looks different than envisioned, which brings us to point number 5. Last point, don't be afraid to change gears. I think that if we are doing life right, if we are living fully, then we are changing and we are evolving on a regular basis. And so I found that with each new role, with each new company, with each new chapter of my life, I have aspired to something slightly different. For example, my career started in freelance writing. I knew when I came back from Thailand and had to start doing real adult things, I was like, I want to do something that is remote and flex time and creative. And so I started a business in freelance writing. And I did that for a couple of years. until I was kind of burnt out on the writing thing. And I was like, well, I like the remote and I like the flex time, but I kind of wish there was more stability. You know, freelance has like a feast famine aspect to it, or it can. And I also want to do something other than writing. Like I feel like I've got like a brain in here that could do some other things. I just don't know what yet. And so I manifested this other job, literally manifested again. It was one of those things that fell from the sky into my lap. It was the slightly boring job. The very boring job. And during that time, I was accumulating all of these really important skills, and it was exactly what I asked for. It was remote, it was flex time, and it had the warm, snuggly blanket of a W-2. So it was like a really cool place to be. And my roles changed every 6 months because the CEO was amazing, and I was never doing one thing for too long because she knew that I got bored. So I built up skills way beyond writing that allowed me to have the roles that I have today. And also during that time, right, I was making the spiritual and the psychological, parapsychological content that we do here. And I was having so much fun with this that I was like, I wish I could do something like for work that involved bridging spirituality and science, which is when ions fell out of the sky and into my lap. And then I was also like, I like what I'm doing kind of, but I wish that I could do something entrepreneurial. Like I kind of want to be in charge, you know? And tried something entrepreneurial. It failed. But I get hired at a company that makes companies. And that's a lot of change in just a few years. Why a lot of change? I have said this in another video, which is that I don't believe that manifesting is a one-off thing. A lot of people see it like a Disney fast pass to get to where they want and get there faster. But I think of it like cultivating a garden, and literally every moment of our lives, we are co-creating with spirit, with source. It is about what is the vibration you hold within you, and is it in alignment with where you want to go? So I don't think it behooves us to think of anything as a destination. It's always a journey. I'll tell you a secret, okay? I actually resigned from Ions after 9 months of working there, and I love the people. I love the work they do. I have so much respect and admiration for them, just a world of it. And I learned a ton. It created a whole new angle of content on this channel, and it was a really great experience. But in my time there, I came to realize that they were never going to see me as anything other than a writer. And I had come to realize from my old job and the role I'm in currently that I'm actually much more of a strategist. There's other abilities that I have that were never going to be utilized. And so I felt very underutilized in that role. And it got to the point where I was like, I think I have to say goodbye to this, even though it's been an amazing opportunity. And I think I have to focus full time on the studio. It was just an intuition and it felt really right. And I went ahead and I did that. And because I put all of my attention on this thing, I was recently handed the reins on one of the companies that we are trying to develop. And so I've somehow ended up right where I want to be, and I'm getting paid for it, which is great. Doesn't always happen the way you think it will. So my point is, don't be afraid to change gears. You can absolutely, I don't care who you are or what you want to do, you can absolutely manifest work you love, okay? I believe in you. I do. Just keep in mind that the dream sometimes changes, and therefore the jobs do too. And it's the same with relationships, even if you find your person, right? I think a lot of people look at relationships like marriage is the end goal. And I can't say this with certainty because I'm obviously not married, but I think that marriage is probably where the work begins. And so I don't think it behooves us in any aspect of our lives to think in terms of destination and using the law of attraction like a Disneyland fast pass to get us to that destination. Instead, I think we have to think of it as, I think it better serves us to think of it as every moment of our life, we are handcrafting our reality. And that is it for today. I would love to hear about your manifesting successes in the comments. If you have any other tips, if you found your dream job, what you're doing to get to that space. And in any case, thank you so much for tumbling down the rabbit hole with me today, for having idea sex with me. Hail to the power and the sight. And until next time, I hope you stay very, very blessed, my friends. I have a much different interpretation. Okay, I'm eating leprechaun hair. Hang on. Gross. I would just have it as it is there. Sorry, Shiva, you're gonna have to edit a bunch because I'm like changing the script as I go sometimes. Improv. Okay. Wait, no.